This week I wanted to talk to you about the one calculation that can make or break every single buy-to-let deal you'll ever do. It's the lender stress test, and if you learn this simple formula today, you'll sail through the checks while your competition scrambles for a calculator. Lenders don't lend on hope, they lend on maths. They take your expected rent, divide it by a stress test interest rate, then demand that the rent still covers the mortgage by 125%, 145% or even 160%. Fail that test and it's game over, no matter how perfect the property looks or how shiny your credit file is. So here's the formula, write this down. A pass is the monthly rent divided by the loan amount, which is multiplied by the stress test and then divided by 12, as long as that's higher than the ICR. So the monthly rent is what the valuer says the property will achieve and not what you hope it would achieve. And the stress rate is the lender's notional rate, which could be 8%, for example. Now, ICR, this stands for interest cover ratio. So it's 125% for basic rate taxpayers and also limited companies, and 145% or above for higher rate taxpayers who own the property in their personal name. If the ratio lands above the target, then you're in. If it doesn't, tweak the variables until it does. So here's some ways that you can actually get the deal to fit. So 5-year fixed, lenders can stress test at the pay rate rather than the beefy notional rate. Add a chunky product fee to the loan to shave the interest rate. So you'll get a lower pay rate, which can help the stress test pass even though you've borrowed more. And then you've got top slicing. So use surplus, personal or business income to plug any rental shortfall. This is great for professional landlords with solid salaries. And then up the rent legally. Modernised kitchens allow pets or furnish to executive standard. A £50 bump in rent may sound like not a lot, but it can swing marginal deals. And then you can reduce the loan. So this is painful to hear, I appreciate, but sometimes you simply borrow a little less and then recycle the equity later with a remortgage. Remember, you're bending the maths and not the rules. So let's talk a scenario through. So if you had a £200,000 loan at a pay rate of 5%, but the lender's stress testing at 8.5%, and they need the ICR to be 145%, this is how the calculation would go. So £200,000 times 8.5% divided by 12, that gives you 1,417. So the required rent needed would be 1,417 times 1.45, which gives you £2,055. But the actual rent is 1,200, so that's going to be a fail. So if you switch to a 5-year fixed at 5% stress tests, the monthly stress test calculation would go £200,000 times 5%, divide that by 12. We now have £833 as the required rent. So if you multiply that £833 by 1.45, that gives you 1,208. So if your rent is still 1,200 quid, you're just £8 short, which is frustratingly close. So let's look at this another way. If you choose a product that has a 3% fee, but an interest rate of 4.45 instead of 5%, the new stress test is calculated as £200,000 times 4.45% divided by 12. So that gives you £742. So take the 742 and then multiply that by 1.45. And that gives you £1,076. So you're passing with a £124 margin. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, speak to a mortgage advisor and we'll happily carry out those calculations for you. As you can see from that one product tweak, for the same property, it goes from computer says no to a yes. I create straight talking videos for UK landlords covering buy-to-let, bridging loans and smart property finance strategies. If you're serious about growing your portfolio, YouTube's picked this video out for you to watch next. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week.